Hey folks, we're out here in the shop at the farm today. We're going to show you how to hang a splitting maul on a new handle. And it'll be the same procedure for an axe, a hatchet, a hammer, whatever. And there's a way to do it to where it's not going to come off, and we'll show you how to do that. So stick around. So here's our splitting maul out of the camp trailer that we keep in there. We noticed when we were going through the trailer the other day, if you were with us, that the handle had been coming out of this, and this handle's a little worse for wear. You can see they probably overswung the piece of wood and hit the handle and cracked it, so they put tape on it here. So all in all, this handle's toast. If it wasn't, we could probably cut this piece off and come a little further down the handle with the same maul. But as it is, we went and got a new handle. They didn't have anything close to what we needed for the profile. Everything was too small. So we got this bigger handle that we're going to cut down and make it fit in this hole. So we'll show you how to do that. We're probably going to come below these two holes and we'll cut this off. And then we'll start shaping this handle to fit our maul. So there's about where our head is going to sit. How I came up with that was I want this notch to be just barely up inside the maul here. So this is where we're going to end up. So we're going to cut above that probably about a ½ inch. Got our handle cut off. We're going to save one of these to use as our wedge that we need, because it's about the right length that we need, and it's obviously the right width. We'll probably have to cut it down a little bit. So good hardwood that we'll use for that. So now I want to put this on the top of our handle, and we'll get as close as we can on the tracing. First of all, we're going to measure our width here. Sometimes these are wider on one side than the other, so it'll wedge in there good. And if it is wider on one side, you want the wider side on the top, because you want the handle to expand into that wider side so it can't slip down. So we will figure out what that is once we get that drawn on there. So measuring it, we've figured out that this side is a little bit wider than this side there. So this is the side we'll put up. So I'm going to put our handle down sort of like this. We'll put this over the top and we'll draw this profile inside on the top of our handle. So we've got our profile drawn on top of our handle. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw some lines that we can use as a reference when we get over to the bandsaw. I want to trim off as much of this as I can with the bandsaw, taking these corners off. And then we have a brand new flapper wheel that will make short work of this wood, and we'll start shaping our handle with the flapper wheel to get it down to the final. But let's go over to the bandsaw. We'll get this cut first. You can see we got most of the corners cut out with the bandsaw, and then we've came down just past where the head's going to end up, and we've started just to curve out a little bit because we want to taper the handle out to where the handle will stop, have something to stop against. If we don't do that, it could slip all the way down the handle. We don't want that. So now we'll take our sander and we'll get a little closer to those lines, and we'll just keep working. Like these here, we're almost down to where the notch is on this one. And then we'll work the back down a little bit more. Now you can see we're slowly working that down. Got a little bit more to do here and around here. It's going to be a while before it fits. Up here we're pretty good. Now when you're doing, say you're taking this down, you want to take it all the way down the full length here. So if you take some off here, you want to run it all the way back. So you're doing it flat all the way across. I don't know if you can see it, but you don't want any waves. You don't want any up and down waves here. You want it smooth all the way across. So we're doing pretty good so far, but it's not going to fit until we get right down to that line. So if you didn't have a sander, this was what you would have used back in the day. It's called a draw knife. So you'd put your handle in a vise or whatever and just use two hands and shave that down little by little, and it would work. Now anymore, you could probably buy a sander cheaper than you could that draw knife, would be my guess, if you went to like Harbor Freight. So whatever you want to use. Now we'll start checking our handle here, put it in our hole. Now width-wise we're pretty good, but you can see we need to be a little narrower to get in there. So you can see where I marked the handle where we still need to trim. And this side's looking pretty good, but we'll have to shave it just a little more. You also want to pay attention to the end, make sure you're doing things evenly. You don't want one side thicker than the other. Now we've got the handle started down into the hole, so what we've gone and done is we've marked a pencil line where it stops. So we know we need to sand from that point up. From there down it's fine. And we've got a good profile, everything seems to be fitting nice and snug. So we'll just keep working our way down. You can see we got a nice snug fit down here. Looking real good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sander, we'll run it up against here. We'll take some of these sharp edges off, but we're going to leave it nice and wide. Now this end, you can see that there's plenty of room for expansion when we drive that wedge in there, and that's what we want. And we're fairly close to center. We're not exactly, but probably close enough. So we'll get this thing cleaned up and we'll make our wedge. Okay, we got our handle cleaned up real nice. I'll probably do just a little bit of hand sanding on there. You can tell that we are square with our handle, which is good. And we have this much sticking over the top. Now this is important. We need this sticking over the top to hold our maul head on. Now we're not going to leave all of this, but we're going to leave probably maybe half of it, because we want a little bit sticking over the top that's going to expand out when we put that wedge in. And if it's wider here than it is inside, it'll never come off. Okay, we're going to start working on our wedge. Obviously we want our wedge the same width of our handle, so we drew a little line. We're going to go cut that off, and then we can start tapering it. And when you make your wedge, you want your grain to run top to bottom like this. Don't run your grain side to side. With the hardwood, it's not as important, but we don't want it to break the wrong way. If we put it in this way, it could break off before we have it driven in all the way. If we drive it in this way, it's not going to split. As we're making our wedge, we want to figure out what the width of it needs to be. So we got about 1/8 of an inch here. We got about a 1/16 over here and a 1/16 over here. So at this point, we want it about 1/4 inch wide, and then taper up to a little bit wider on the top, because this is where it needs to be 1/4, needs to be wider up here, needs to be narrower down on the bottom. So down on the bottom, being this is only 1/8 of an inch wide, the wedge will only be 1/8 of an inch wide on the very bottom. So that's about the profile of our wedge there. We're 1/4 inch, about right there. So we'll take this over on the belt sander and we'll hold it against there and we'll sand it right down to that line on both sides. A nice flat surface on both sides. So we'll have a real good contact in here in the middle. We're going to put glue all over this, and then we're going to drive it down into that slot. Now as we drive it, we're going to have this end down here on the concrete, because if we were just to hold on to the handle and hit this thing, this head's going to want to work its way out a little bit. We want all the force going down onto the concrete so this head doesn't come up. We'll drive that in as far as we can. Nice and tight on the bottom, nice and tight on the top. It's wider on the top than it is on the bottom. That head is never going to come off. We use the expanding glue, so that glue is going to expand and squeeze out all over the place. And then we'll clean this top up. We'll cut that down probably about 1/4 inch or so. We'll leave a little bit hanging over. We'll bring you back when we do that. So there it is, folks, the finished product. Pretty snug. See, we left a little bit on the top because we wanted a little wider up here than the rest of it. Some of these are not tapered on the inside. It's the same width all the way through. So that's why it's really important to leave this little bit hanging out to keep your head from coming off. Got a nice tight fit down here too, and it's wider so it's not going to fall down the handle. We sprayed a little Varathane on here to seal that rough area up that we sanded. Looks real nice. So that's the ticket to hanging an axe, a maul, or hatchet, whatever you're going to hang on a wooden handle. You can see that you don't always have to have the correct size handle. As long as you got a little know-how and some tools, you can make it fit. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us here at Markelly Farm.